my friends, to the InObscuria podcast, a podcast where we exhume obscure rock and punk and metal, and we put them in one of three categories: the lost, the forgotten, or the should-have-beens. My name is Kevin Williams, and I am joined by Mr. Robert Harrison.
Howdy.
What is going on, Robert?
Man, it's weird. It's still daylight outside. We're recording. I'm used to being pitch black dark.
Doesn't really go
like my
along
soul,
with,
but
yes.
yeah, it's just kind of weird. Rock and roll
really
at
go along with
daytime
us.
doesn't mean the same.
It's nothing quite like seeing a really heavy like death metal or thrash metal band in a noon slot on a festival.
It's all pasty.
Just doesn't work.
They're all getting sunburnt because they're so pasty.
Just does not work.
Sunscreen! SPF 50!
So, hey man, last time we were chatting, you mentioned something that was going to happen here at the firehouse.
Yes.
Did the event happen?
It did, and they're check cashed.
All right.
Which is the most important part.
So the Kingsford Charcoal Company.
Yes, the Kingsford Charcoal Company paid my mortgage this month and then some to do an infomercial. It wasn't a commercial because it went on a long time, but it's probably an infomercial they'll show on social media or their website. They're trying to be relevant. Charcoal, who uses it? Some purists use it, but there's so many Traegers and Big Green Egg fans out there that sometimes charcoal is forgotten about. So they were shooting a infomercial with none other than Mr. T-Pain, Tallahassee Payne.
T-Pain.
He's been on a boat or two, I imagine.
I know nothing about him other than his name.
Yeah, that's it. I had to Google him. I had to phone a friend, actually. When I did, I'm like, who's this guy? Is he famous? They're like, yeah. So I had a number of friends wanted to come over and sell him weed. That was the big thing. It's like a claim to fame to sell him weed. I'm like, I think he's got enough. We're good.
All right. So if you're a first-time listener, welcome. And
welcome.
Then know that Robert lives in a firehouse, a real deal fire department house, right? So it used to be a fire department.
So the old
house.
Smyrna Firehouse is what it is. And you can look that up. Google Old Smyrna Firehouse, and you'll see photos of this place. And it's a good excuse to have fire trucks, like you need an excuse. But we'll post a picture of Mr. T. Pizzle. Like his friends, he lets his friends call him T. Pizzle.
T. Pizzle.
Yeah, T. Pizzle. I was calling him T. Pizzle because we're buddies now. We're friends.
Okay.
Amigos.
So people pay you money to do events at your house
Yes.
and do things like Kingsford Charcoal commercials.
Yes.
With
and
T-Pain.
We've had music videos, but this was the first commercial. So I was happy with it. Everything, they're very respectful of the house. The biggest problem we had was my next door neighbor's chickens. I can see out the window right now. They were being noisy. So we had to go over there and strangle a few. No, we just let them out in the yard. And then, let's see, another neighbor showed up with a lawnmower mowing his yard while they were recording. So we had to go pay him off.
Quiet on the set.
Yeah, exactly. So other than that, it was interesting the amount of equipment and crap they bring to my house to shoot a commercial. It's amazing. I mean, 5 or 6 $20,000 cameras. So I steered clear of anything expensive. I didn't want that on my list of things that I had to pay for. So, but it's fun. It was interesting to see what goes on behind the scenes. There's a lot that you don't see. It's amazing how it all comes together creatively, that they make it look seamless, where when you watch them film a movie, a TV show, a commercial, anything, there's so many, goof ups and no, let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. And so, yeah, at some point I'll find wherever they post that, because they didn't tell me, and we'll post a link to it. It'll be pretty funny. So we'll post a picture first when the episode comes out.
Well, tell us about hanging out with T-Pain. Surely you hung out with T-Pain.
Yeah.
You were supposed to teach him something, right?
Well,
but that didn't happen.
Yeah, the original plan was for him to go down the fire pole, and I was going to have to teach him the proper way to descend a fire pole. There's a method to it, so you don't break your ankles.
Yeah, you don't just jump down.
No, I know. I've tried that. I spilled beer everywhere doing that. But they were running behind, so I think that scene got cut out. But they had a lot of scenes outside. He's a really fun dude to be around. Like, he was joking around the whole time. Even, when the camera wasn't rolling, there's zero hint of attitude or, somebody that's famous.
Right.
He just was.
He didn't act like a rock star.
No, not at all. Anybody and everybody, if he could crack a joke, he would crack a joke or laugh at himself if he screwed up. So it was really fun to watch them work versus the divas and the people that you're not supposed to look at. Don't look them in the eye, which that may be just a myth that people say.
Well, hasn't that happened before? Like, where somebody told you, like, don't talk to the talent or whatever?
Well, I mean, I was in a movie and they said, don't look at the camera. And of course,
That's different.
I turned my head and looked right at the camera.
Did
and
you give thumbs up?
No,
James Dio.
I got a cut, and they had to reset like 30 people. It was a bunch of people. So I have friends that work in the industry, and there are rules for them to not engage the talent. So they call them the talent, and you're not supposed to engage with them or talk to them in any way, shape, or form unless they talk to you first.
That's how I prefer to be addressed anywhere I go.
Yeah, just look down.
I want somebody to call me the talent.
The talent.
Yeah.
That would be cool. I've never been that way. I was an extra, but never the talent.
The talent.
But when it's filmed in my house, I walk around like I own the place because I do. And so a couple of times, the last time they filmed a music video here, I can't remember the guy's name, was a rapper here in Atlanta. I like walked through the scene. As soon as they said cut, I just started walking right through where they were filming because I needed to get somewhere. And everybody's looking at me like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to do that. I'm just like, hey, what's up? It's my house.
I own this place.
Yes, right. I paid a mortgage.
Well, after you smoke a J with T-Pain, go
yeah.
listen to Pot Up Thunder, Decibel Geek, Podcast Rock City, Cobras and Fire, Growing Up Rock, Slamfest Podcast, The Hustle, Metal Up Your Podcast, The Dummy Room, Potter Than Hell, Rock Strikes 10, The Kiss Room, I Love It Loudcast, Ages of Rock, The Synaptic Empire, and don't forget about Monty over at Monty.
Do not forget about Monty.
Don't forget about Monty. Yep. Also, come visit us, InObscuria.com. Like us, share us, recommend us on all the socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and whatever else comes out. I'm sure we'll be on that too.
Come visit us in Nashville.
Oh, yeah. Come visit us in Nashville. Forgot all about that.
You can come to Atlanta, Georgia, but Nashville's going to be where it's happening.
Absolutely. And what is that we're talking about?
It's been a long time since we've rock and rolled, but that all changes this August as Rockin' Pod returns to Nashville. This annual convention brings together rock artists, fans, and podcasters for an unforgettable rock experience. Special guests this year include Billy Sheehan, Ron Keel, Don Jameson of That Metal Show, and current and former members of Winger, LA Guns, Accept, and more. Stage panels, signing sessions, and photo ops will be available, plus lots of vinyl and memorabilia vendors. Music podcasters from all over North America will be appearing on site for live interviews, speaking sessions, networking, and more. Got a music podcast? Register and join us. Rockin' Pod Weekend kicks off with a pre-party featuring former Tesla guitarist Tommy Skio and his new band Resist and Bite, making their debut performance, as well as a rare hair set featuring surprise guests performing all-time classics. Rockin' Pod Weekend takes place August 6th through the 8th in Nashville, Tennessee. Tickets, VIP passes, podcast registration, and discounted hotel rooms are available now at rockandpod.com. Rockin' Pod is brought to you by DBG Productions, Bradley Entertainment, and Inceptia.
Preach on, Aaron Camaro.
Is that brought to you by D-Bag Promotions?
D-Bag Promotions.
Their marketing
DBG.
department, they didn't think that through.
Yeah, that's Decibel Geek.
Oh, okay.
D-Bag.
This is DBG Productions. I'm like,
I love that, actually.
Well, maybe it's Dime Bag. Dime Bag Production.
Nice. Well, last week, we talked about Marillion. That was our part 3 of a part 4 series. So this week, we're going to switch it up a little bit. And I got this amazing idea for a subject, which we've actually done before. But, I've been getting things in my sleep, and it happened again. So I fell asleep and I had HBO on and I was awoken in the middle of the night. I wasn't watching anything. I'd obviously fallen asleep and I was awoken to
what?
You got to hear it. It's this.
Wait, we can't pay the price of the demo tapes unless we take the demo tapes to the record company and get paid.
Hello, exactly.
That's not an MP, that's a YP. Your problem. Come up with the money and I'll give you the tapes. That's it.
Okay, all right, now you're talking above my head, all right? I don't know this industry jargon, YP, MP, whatever, okay? All I know is that I cannot get a record contract. We cannot get a record contract unless I take these tapes. And granted, the tapes themselves are your that you own them, okay? But the magic that is on the tapes, that fucking heart and soul that we put into those tapes, that is ours, and you don't own that. Now I need to take that magic and get it to the record company. Okay, and they're waiting for us. We're supposed to be there a half hour ago. We look like assholes right now, man.
You got the touch. You got the power. Yeah.
classic, man.
You got the touch.
You got the touch. That is a YP, not an MP. I'm going to use that tomorrow somewhere.
I don't understand your jargon.
Look, man, I don't understand this industry jargon, man.
So if you don't know what that is, that was from Boogie Nights, one of the greatest films of the 90s for sure.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that, go out to Blockbuster Video and rent that,
right
tape tonight. Oh, wait a minute.
Go to Movie Connection.
Movie Connections.
What was the one that was down the street? It was something like that. Movies. I don't know.
God.
Back in the day, there were so many video places.
Oh,
that had
every street corner had
stupid
one.
names.
Movie Gallery, something like
maybe
that.
Maybe that was it. Movie Gallery or something like that. Yeah. Hollywood Video was another one. Oh, man.
That was a Friday night, man. Walking around that store going, I got to get something. Everybody's coming over.
And it's never in.
No, you don't have three copies of the most popular stuff.
So, with all that going on, it woke me up. I thought, yeah, it's time. Why don't we talk about some of the songs from soundtracks of movies that rock? Or maybe some that don't. And we're still going to talk about the soundtracks.
That was a great soundtrack.
Yes, that was. So we're going to talk about the forgotten gems from the not so obscure and maybe some that are obscure, but you may not have heard this particular song because it only came out on the soundtrack. So that's what we're going to talk about. We did the same thing way back in episode 57, which I believe was around Halloween time, maybe Christmas time. I don't know. They blur a little bit.
Yeah, well, last year kind of blurred.
Last year, yeah. You know, during COVID. Oh, wait, it's still going on. Episode 57, Arcane Sounds from the Big Screen. And we discussed in that episode how my sister was kind of the soundtrack nut in our family. And she actually introduced me to a lot of groups and music that probably I wouldn't have listened to otherwise just because they had an oddball song on a soundtrack that she had that she probably didn't listen to. But I went, Dio. I like this Dio on the Iron Eagle soundtrack. So most of her collection was based on 70s, 80s, and 90s. And to me, that's kind of the glory years for the soundtracks. But it's still going out today. There, major films have soundtracks.
I guess one from the 90s would be Pulp Fiction.
Oh, that was huge. Everybody had that.
Yeah.
Everybody owned that album.
I don't know anything since then, but...
Yeah, I have quite a few, and I've gone back, but I always find that I always go back to the 80s ones. For some reason, they're just so cheesy that they're fun. Now, when we did that episode back in October, December-ish, I don't know, whatever.
October.
Whatever it was, we got a lot of feedback from our listeners, and so... A lot of our listeners said, you forgot to mention X, or how about this one? And what we had done is we had gone down a whole list of soundtracks that we could remember, and obviously we didn't hit all of them because, my God, how many movies are there? But there's some big ones that we missed that were like huge hits on their own just being a soundtrack. So Jason Kearney pointed out, oh, by the way, you didn't mention Physical Graffiti. That was a big one. Now, I've actually never seen that film.
I'm trying to remember. If I've seen it, it's been a long time.
But I do know it's like set in the 60s, right? And it had like a whole 60s soundtrack.
Are you talking about American Graffiti or Physical Graffiti?
I think it's maybe I
Physical Graffiti.
Physical Graffiti is a Led Zeppelin album.
Yeah, that's why I was like, was that just a concert film?
I think I mean American Graffiti.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've seen that a number of times, and that spawned like kind of a resurgence of 50s
and 60s,
50s and 60s rock, and then
I never saw
a TV show, the spinoff TV show from that
was that Happy Days.
Happy Days,
okay.
And then Laverne and Shirley. So it actually had two different spinoffs from that.
Yep.
So it was huge back then.
No, never saw it, but I know it was a big deal.
It was it's a good movie. You should watch. It's wholesome too. You can watch that with your family.
He also mentioned Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and there was a movie in 1978 that featured the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton, and then Aerosmith were like the bad guys, and Steve Martin's in it, George Burns is in it. Another one I've never seen, but I know that it came out, and I know that people had the soundtrack. But
yeah.
Nice. And then he sent in a couple of shots. He actually took some pictures of some of the soundtracks that he pulled out when he was listening to our episode. And so he said, you need to check these out. And he had Mortal Kombat, which I've never heard that one. The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Batman Forever. Apparently there's some good songs on the Batman Forever soundtrack. South Park, Duke Nukem, and Beavis and Butthead. Now, I do own the Beavis and Butthead soundtrack. That was another one that a lot of people owned. Mm-hmm. And had some really cool songs on it. Megadeth was on it and a bunch of others. So we also heard from our friend over at the Slamfest podcast, Mr. Brad Rustoven. And he said, you really should have mentioned the jazz singer, Neil Diamond. So Brad's a big Neil Diamond guy. That's another movie I've never seen.
No, I've never seen that.
But I do know that from Neil Diamond, that's a big album that people have that are into Neil Diamond. And he said that we mentioned Dazed and Confused, but there was actually a second CD, I guess, that came out that was called Even More Dazed and Confused. So apparently they didn't release all the music on the first one, and I guess it sold really well, so they put out another album.
Yeah, because that movie was all about the music. I mean,
it was.
It had a storyline, but I mean, every scene had music going on, so I'm sure that soundtrack's pretty good.
It's pretty low budget, that film, but it still holds up really well. It's just a fun watch. And then he mentioned one that I actually saw as a kid that I completely forgot about. It's such a bad movie that I love it. Light of Day, starring Joan Jett and Michael J. Fox.
Never heard of it.
Oh man, it's about they're brother and sister, and they have like a bar band, and they're trying to get big, and they're either in Pittsburgh or somewhere in the Northeast. And it's all about them trying to make a living, and then Joan Jett ends up being in some metal band called the Huns. and I guess it's all about the family, really. It's not just about the music, and the mother gets Alzheimer's or something like that, and so they're taking care of the mother, and Joan Jett leaves because she's touring with this crappy metal band. And anyway, pretty cool pull, because I had completely forgotten about that one, Brad. And then he mentioned another one I've never seen with Justine Bateman starring in it, which is called Satisfaction.
Yeah,
remember that one?
I
don't remember that one
she
either.
was hot, but other than that.
And then he mentioned another one that everybody knows is Walk the Line.
Oh, yes.
We did mention that one. That's a great one. Joaquin Phoenix, right?
And that was the one that I went to see with my dad. And at the end of the movie, we're walking out, and I asked him what he thought about it. He's like, it's a good movie. June was not that pretty.
Yeah, that's Hollywood, man.
Yeah.
And then Captain Ryan, of course, he always berates us with, you idiots, you forgot this. And he pointed out the biggest soundtrack ever sold 16 million units in the U.S. alone, and we didn't mention it, Saturday Night Fever.
Well, you get down by the way I can't even do that. That's 2 octaves above where I can hear. But that's what it sounds like. You could have been a rock star by doing that. God,
oh, yeah.
I don't understand that. But yeah, that's cool. That was a huge hit.
Obviously a big deal. That's just in the U.S. I think overall is something like 40 million. I mean, can you even imagine those numbers? It just doesn't make any sense. He also mentioned Animal House.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we forgot about that one.
Dun, dun. I mean, every college frat party after that was playing all those songs straight from that soundtrack.
And then he mentioned one that I didn't know, but I'm going to have to check out, called The Hollywood Knights, which is another Animal House type film. First film for Tony Danza, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Fran Drescher's in it too.
Oh my God, Fran Drescher. Does she talk normally or like that?
I don't know.
I would have to turn it off if she was doing the other voice.
And Captain Ryan said if we want to do a whole episode on heavy metal, he'd be down for that, because that's his film.
I mean, but that one's an outlier because it's so unique. It's so weird and cool and bad.
The soundtrack's so good, dude.
Yeah.
And it's so weird, some of the bands they put on it that they
we talked about
put under the theme of metal.
The grouping of bands that didn't, if you just read their names off, it's like, these don't belong here.
So weird. Now, Nick Jones from Pot of Thunder, he said, how did you forget about The Crow? Yeah, that was a big one.
I never saw it.
You never saw that? No, it was a good movie. Really good movie. And then, of course, La Bamba.
Yep, that was played on the radio a billion times.
But he said that was his go-to for music movies, is La Bamba. And, of course, our good friend from down under, Mr. Craig, Elvin, he hit us with a big duh. The Highlander. We didn't even talk about Highlander soundtrack, which of course features his favorites, Queen.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was Air Supply.
Air Supply. I don't even know what Air Supply song.
Exactly like that. I'm all out of love.
Oh yeah. That's
so
the one.
Lost without you.
Sometimes I get confused between Air Supply and Chicago from the 80s.
Oh, it's a half a step difference between
Chicago from
those
the 70s kicks ass.
Yeah.
Chicago from the 80s.
Once you get into the power not even power, just ballads. Straight up. Peter Cetera. That was it. I was trying to think of his name.
Yeah.
The Peter Cetera ballads. It's split difference between that and Air Supply.
Here's how we're going to do this, because some of these bands everybody knows. It's just maybe you don't realize that they were on this soundtrack, or maybe you don't know this song because it's an outlier in their discography. So some of these I'm going to tell you about it beforehand, and some of these, like this one, I'm just going to tell you it's from the Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey soundtrack, which I bought in 1991. That was the second Bill and Ted.
I was going to say that wasn't the first one. Excellent Adventure was the first one.
Excellent Adventure was the first one. The second one was Bogus Journey, where they had death in it, and he was like a character.
And there's a third one, wasn't there?
The third one just came out last year during the pandemic.
Oh, kind of the reunion.
Yeah. So anyway, the soundtrack's killer, and it came out in 91, so it's interesting. I bought the soundtrack only because it featured a Kiss song that hadn't come out yet. It was going to come out on their upcoming release called Revenge, and it was a song called God Gave Rock and Roll to You Too, which I absolutely love, and it's the final song that the band plays at the end of the movie, from what I remember at least. In my head it was. But there are a ton of awesome nuggets on the soundtrack, and it came out the summer 91, right before grunge kind of broke big, right? So grunge a lot of those grunge releases came out in the fall of 91, and this came out in the summer. So it's like it straddles the hair bands, so Slaughter's on it, Winger's on it, and those songs are actually really good from those bands, and they're soundtrack only songs. And then it has kind of the alt metal, what was coming. So it has Faith No More, Primus, which at that point in time, a lot of those bands were fairly new to people.
I mean, that would have been so avant-garde listening to Primus in 91 prior to, because I heard grunge first and then was introduced to Primus. And
that was my first time hearing Primus as well. And I heard, I think, a second song, maybe my first week of freshman year, which was 1991, the fall of 91, because some guy that was in my class was like, "Oh man, have you heard Primus?" And he was telling me all about him, and I'm like, "Yeah, I have one song. That's all I know." And then it also featured this band that we're going to play, which I think you'll figure out who it is, but I don't get a chance to play this band other than on this show where we do something like this, and it's an obscure song by them.
Good excuse.
So I think this movie led us to Wayne's World. Wayne's World came out in 92, but I think this movie in particular was kind of maybe the template for, hey, we can do a better version of that with Wayne's World from Saturday Night Live. Just in my head, that's what happened, but I could be completely wrong. Who knows? So I'm going to play this song, see if you know who this is.
Okay, I love how they ended that. Ah! It's like you saw a spider in the recording booth right in the last second. They kept it in there. So those were the Kings of X.
That was King's X. And that song kicks ass.
Yeah.
Not on any of their albums.
Nowhere else except
Only
that
on the
sound.
Bill and Ted soundtrack.
Just got buried in there.
Love it. Absolutely love that song. That's a really, really good soundtrack. So go seek that one out if you can. All right, let's jump into probably a movie that most people don't know. In fact, I mentioned this movie to our friend Jeremy Zamora, who's a punk rock guy, and he didn't know this movie. So there were a ton of movies which came out in the early to mid 80s that were really what I call punk-sploitation films. Where basically they took what Hollywood or whoever the director was thought was punk and used that in some
Put a story to
story, right? And just kind of fit punk into it. In this case, it was a movie about a punk rock band that were all girls. And of course, they focused on these girls not really knowing how to play, yet they're going to become big stars, right? Because that's what everybody thought punk was, I guess. So that's what they make the movie on. And the movie's called Ladies and Gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains. And it came out in 1982. You ever heard of this movie?
No.
Pretty low budget. I only know of it because they used to play it on Night Flight on the USA Network. Night Flight was, I think, Friday, Saturday night, maybe. And they would feature like cult films and music videos and just anything cool. And they focused a lot on punk rock and metal and just everything that was kind of semi-underground at that time that they could show.
Things that you could sit in your parents' basement and get high and watch while you're sitting in your beanbag.
How did you know? Yeah, so, they would have like...
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Using
So
the quotation marks.
they would have
allegedly.
like Bad Brains videos. Like you wouldn't see a Bad Brains video on MTV, but you would see it on Night Flight. So really cool. I used to love Night Flight, and they used to play this movie. And there were a bunch of movies, like I said, that are in this realm. We played last time from Another State of Mind, which is another movie that I saw on Night Flight. And that one was a real documentary about punk bands, about Social Distortion and a couple other bands. But there was a movie called Suburbia, Rude Boy, which The Clash starred in. There was Decline of Western Civilization, which a lot of people have seen that one. Repo Man is another one that we may talk about later. But this movie is interesting because it focuses on what none of the others do, which is an all-girl band trying to break in punk rock in the early 80s. And it features a very young Diane Lane and Laura Dern.
Ooh.
They are the band. So they're, I think, cousins. So it's like sisters and a cousin and another girl.
I think I only know them from like 10 years after
Exactly.
this,
You wouldn't
90s
even...
movies.
You wouldn't... I didn't even realize it was Laura Dern. I recognize Diane Lane, but not Laura Dern. I mean, they're pretty young here. And so the other thing that it features is this bad girl band who really doesn't know how to play goes and sees this band opening for a washed up metal band in their town. So it's like a smaller town. It's not even a major city. And they go to see this band opening who's a band from the UK, and they're a punk band. First time in the States, right? So, kind of that Sex Pistols kind of
they're trying to play
story.
off that.
They're kind of playing off of it. The band is called the Looters, and it actually is Steve Jones and Paul Cook from the Sex Pistols, Paul Simonon from the Clash, and Fee Waybill from the Tubes.
Nice. That's a pretty damn good
damn
lineup.
legit. Yeah. And so they actually play full songs in the movie, which you never hear that. You never
they'll
hear
have snippets or it's in the background.
I guess it's punk rock, so they can do a 2.5 minute
That's true.
song.
What am I thinking?
Yeah, so the Looters play a song the first time you see them, and Diane Lane's watching them in all, like, this is where she figures out, this is what I want to do with my life. I'm going to go. And eventually they go on the road with the Looters, and because the Looters don't like opening for the 70s washed up band. Now, the 70s washed up band looked like a cross between Kiss, because they have on some makeup and platforms, and Foghat.
Oh, God.
It's like a really bad mix-up of everything that was bad about the 70s.
There's a
everything
lot,
that was good about the 70s, and really bad. So it's obviously they were kind of taking a piss on, what was then the dinosaurs.
Yeah, because this is 82, so it's
right?
far
That's
enough along
old.
where it's
That's
not cool
old.
yet.
Not cool. And so anyway, the Looters end up taking the Stains out with them on tour, and eventually the Stains cover one of the Looters' tunes, and they get big and put on MTV at the end of the movie, and the Looters don't. So it's kind of like not a great story.
Yeah. It depends on who you're following.
Right.
The stage, you're like, yeah.
But what we get is some really cool music that Steve Jones wrote, and I didn't really know this. So they have this song, the first time you see him, it's called Join the Professionals, which we're going to play it. And it's actually a song that when Paul Cook and Steve Jones left the Pistols, they formed a band called The Professionals. Did you know this?
Did not know that.
I didn't know this either.
I didn't know any other bands other than Rotten's band.
Yeah, other than him going out and doing his stuff. But yeah, I didn't know that either. I know that Steve Jones did a bunch of solo albums in the 80s, but I'd never heard of the Professionals. And apparently they had some legal issues, so their first album got shelved and didn't come out till later. And you know how that works.
Yeah,
so
we've told that story a few times.
Yeah, so anyway, never knew that, but this song, The Looters, in the movie play is actually from The Professionals, but it's actually by the guys who were on the stage performing it in the movie. So I'm going to play The Looters, Join the Professionals from, ladies and gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains from 1982.
Tonight, the Gold Key, The Looters.
Hello. Oh, it's lovely to be in your wonderful country. Where the fuck are we? Do you want to be a professional?
All right, so currently there's a rabbit sitting out in front of the firehouse, and you'll hear my dog, Ronnie James Dio, in the background probably barking at that rabbit. There's nothing I can do about it, so we're going to keep going. I'm a little confused, which is not surprising anytime I say that. So Steve's band was the Professionals. Mm-hmm. That song was Join the Professionals.
Join the Professionals.
But was that in the movie, or...
In the movie, it was played by the band The Looters.
The Looters. Okay, so I was just confused on the chain of events there. So
The Looters.
The real band that was playing that was the Professionals.
Was the Professionals.
But in the movie, it was the Looters.
And
the Looters.
And that didn't come out until years later. I think maybe late 80s, early 90s, because it wasn't on... They had one proper album that came out, and then one that came out that had been shelved, which they'd actually recorded before the one that actually came out, but timeline's all screwed up. But this song was not even a song that was included on the first album. It was kind of an outtake.
Oh, wow.
So it's been in this movie since 82.
It was a proper punk rock song. It was longer because it was more produced, it seemed like, than a lot of the early punk rock songs. So it was a proper song to me.
I think it's awesome. I never knew the background until I did a little research on it. I just thought it was used for the movie, and I didn't realize that Steve Jones and Paul Cook had even formed a band after the Sex Pistols. I did not know that. So apparently...
I tried to join the Professionals. That didn't last very long. Right out of college. That went horribly wrong. So
that's a great movie. And we're going to go to another great movie. And this is one that's it's one of those duhs, and I think we might have mentioned it, but the reason I'm going to play this is if you think about the context after we listen to it, if you think about the context of who this band is, when this came out, what were they thinking in doing this? Like, what really...
There's a whole episode theme right there. What were they thinking?
Well, we've done that, but this is...
but this is more like, what the hell, man?
I mean, I loved it because I was a kid and I was really into it. This is the second album that I ever owned.
Yeah.
So let's discuss when we get back.
All right. Wow. I haven't heard that in a long time.
Right.
It's so,
one of my favorite, as a kid, one of my favorite movies, and the second album I ever owned. I owned an Elvis Presley live album, live at Madison Square Garden, and the second album I ever got, I got it for Christmas, was the Flash Gordon soundtrack from 1980, Queen.
I guess I was just a tad bit older than you, and we just gone through Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and I saw Flash Gordon and thought, that's kind of corny.
It's super cheesy.
But I wasn't old enough to go, I appreciate corniness, which I do now. I mean, give me the cheesy and the corniness, all that stuff. But it was just in a point in time where, it didn't resonate with me, but that song did. I remember, and I don't know if it was that version or a different version.
Probably the theme, which is that was the only single, was the Flash theme.
Yeah,
this
so
was
that
called
was what
The
it was.
Hero.
Okay, so I'm getting those mixed up, but that was actually played on the radio. And so it had some airtime, and I remember hearing that and really going, wow, whatever that is. I didn't understand music like I do now.
No, I was the same. I loved it. But thinking back on it now, in 1980, Queen agrees to do this. Do you think they were sold something that it wasn't?
Yeah, I mean, you once again coming off the sci-fi string of hits that had been around. I mean, they had to have built this up to where it was going to be just the biggest thing since Star Wars.
I mean, if you've never seen it, it is a cult classic.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you've never seen this movie, I would tell you first, go watch Ted and Ted 2. Which is Seth MacFarlane and Wahlberg and Kunis are in it as well. But it is hilarious, and it features the guy that plays Flash Gordon, Sam Jones, who was not the greatest of actors, but completely awesome in comedy.
But it was an early comic book, like the Marvel stories now, but in a totally different way. It was campy and corny,
super campy,
and
this is like Batman.
They changed that up until now,
like Batman from the '60s.
Exactly.
Campy.
I mean, compare that to Batman with Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
that's when I was like, oh my god, this is cool. I was never into comic book stuff until that movie. But you compare that to Adam West. That's what it was.
Exactly. So my thing is, why would Queen, who were such a big band in 1980, massive everywhere, in the whole world, Queen's huge. Why would they agree to do this? And so I dug into it. Like, what were they sold?
Was it just something different to do besides their standard?
Here's what I think they were sold. So when this film was first going to come out, it was offered to George Lucas. Okay, and he based a lot of Star Wars on the old Flash Gordon serials and the Flash Gordon comics from back when he was a kid, right, in the 40s and 50s. And he passed on it to do Star Wars. And so then I guess it went to some other directors and finally got picked up, right? And the other thing I found out is the role of Flash Gordon, I just mentioned, it went to Sam Jones. Guess who else they offered the role to? Who did he beat out?
Mark Hamill.
No. He beat out Kurt Russell and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine?
Well, now, was Conan the Barbarian before this or after this?
It had to be either the same
right
year
about
or
the same
before.
Time. So Conan was perfect for Schwarzenegger. I don't know about Flash Gordon.
I don't know about Flash Gordon either.
I don't think that would have worked.
To think about where those guys would later go, in the same decade, and Sam Jones maybe not.
Yeah, he's working at Walmart.
It's just crazy. Now, I will say, as a kid, man, I was in lust with all the space girls in that movie because they wore these really tight, cheap costumes that fit them just right.
That might fall off at any minute.
And for a young boy, I was like,
ooh, what's going on? What are these feelings?
It's bad, but it's good.
Yeah.
I still love it to this day. It is so bad, though.
Okay, so on a tangent, it's time. We've been talking about this for a long time. We need to start up the Old Smyrna Firehouse movie night. Because in the backyard of the firehouse, I've got this huge concrete wall that I've always said I'm going to show movies on it. The first movie, we have to get it out of the way because I always said it's going to be The Wall.
Right.
Shown on the wall.
On the wall.
So once we do that, then Flash Gordon may be really cool because I would bet most of my friends have not seen that.
It's a
most
big
of my younger
contender.
friends. Okay.
And you get the Queen soundtrack.
Yeah, and we're going to go through this whole spiel in front of them, make them listen to us talk about this before the movie.
Yeah, so
all right.
I will never be able to play another Queen song on this podcast.
No,
so this was my one chance.
It's hard to squeeze them in. We've done covers, people doing covers of Queen songs. This is a sneaky way to work that in there.
One chance to get Queen on this podcast.
Oh, there's going to be something else. We'll dig up something else.
Maybe. We'll dig up. Nice. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Well, here's another song from a band that I wouldn't normally be able to put on this podcast, but in 1999, there was a movie that came out that was supposed to be huge. It had a pretty big budget, and I was just stoked that this thing was coming out. And I'm talking about the movie that Kiss put out called Detroit Rock City.
Oh, yeah.
I saw it 3 times in the theater by myself. And all 3 of those times, there was about 4 people in that theater.
I knew you back then. I don't remember an invite to go see this. I never turned it down.
I went by myself.
I never turned down an invitation. Just for the record, I never turned down an invitation to go see that.
So it was intended to be a cross between like Days to Confuse, which had been huge, even though it was low budget, but it was huge at that time. Rock and Roll High School movie from the late 70s, early 80s with the Ramones in it. And it was all based around a 70s Kiss theme. So it's about these guys that are in this Kiss cover band, and they, eat, sleep, drink Kiss all day long, and they get a chance to win tickets on the radio to go see Kiss in Detroit, I guess. And so it's all about their journey and trying to get those tickets. And it's funny, man. I think it's really good, but it bombed.
Did it?
I mean, bombed. Like, didn't even come close to half of the budget that they spent on it, until I'm assuming they put it out on DVD.
Yeah, over 20 years.
Yeah,
they've made
recouped some of it, but it's another cult classic. But I thought it was great. Like I said, I saw it 3 times in the theater alone. I was stoked to see it, but that's me because I'm a Kiss geek.
It was just you and Pee Wee Herman in that theater.
Yeah, pretty much. Spank on ya. Yeah, so the soundtrack, though, was interesting. At the time, I only own it digitally. I never bought the soundtrack because it was kind of, I don't know, I thought it was a little lackluster, but over time it's gotten a little more appealing to me because it features current bands of that time doing covers of classic rock bands. So it's not just Kiss that's on the soundtrack. In the movie, they play a lot of Kiss, but they also play other, they play Thin Lizzy, they play Van Halen from 78, they play things that were around in 78. Yeah, the classics, Cheap Trick. So on the soundtrack, you have current bands covering a lot of these classic
songs. This was 1999 current.
1999 current. So Everclear's on it, doing a Thin Lizzy song, which is kind of odd. Marilyn Manson's on it. Pantera does an amazing version of Cat Scratch Fever. If you've never heard that, it's fantastic. And then you've got some classic rock, just pure classics that you hear all the time on the radio, which is why I was kind of like underwhelmed by the soundtrack.
We've heard those a million times.
Thin Lizzy, not picking a cool song. What are you going to do?
The Boys Are Back in Town.
Jailbreak and Boys Are Back in Town. So Cheap Trick's on it with Surrender, I think. The Sweeter on it, which is kind of cool. Kiss obviously is on it. And the one new song that Kiss has on it is a really, really bad ballad that...
You got to be more specific.
It's really, really bad. Not written by them, okay?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So one of those writers that was big at the time, I can't remember her name, but whatever. It doesn't matter.
Whatever.
But then you have this band who I always thought should have been bigger than they ever got. But you've got this band playing a Kiss song. So I'm going to play it, see if you know who it is. You might. It's an all-girl group. We'll see. 1999.
Too much
Spice Girls, right?
It was not the Spice Girls.
No. So the only two I can think of, the Breeders or Veruca Salt.
Nope. Actually, it's the Donnas.
Oh yeah.
I always dug that band. I always thought they were really cool, especially for the time, because they were playing like 70s Kiss style rock.
Yeah.
They were girls. They were badass. They had some success, but
not enough.
And they had a ton of albums, so maybe we can touch on them some other time.
I would like to touch on them. I'm sorry, what?
That's so not appropriate.
What? No,
is it?
no.
Oh, well.
They're old now. They're like 40.
They're moms now. They're soccer moms now.
Oh, hey, really? Now you're talking. In my wheelhouse.
You're talking my speed. Oh, man. But I always dug them, and great movie. Go see Detroit Rock City or find it wherever it is.
It's somewhere on there.
Somewhere out there on the interworld.
YouTube.
Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about a movie that we actually mentioned last time on the last episode, but this movie had kind of special meaning to me because it actually brought my dad and I together from a soundtrack perspective, which is interesting because my dad was really into like Motown and 60s beach music, which is a Carolinas thing, which people that aren't from the Carolinas don't really know what that is, but it was a big kind of like a Motown swingy kind of music from the 60s.
So, that's what my dad named his boat, right?
Really?
Yeah, beach music.
Beach music.
That was a very fitting name for a boat.
Yeah,
that's where it came from.
Yeah, so that's what my dad was into. So we never had a lot in common, even though I appreciate that stuff more now, but at the time, it was punk rock,
anything
metal,
that your parents are listening to, go away.
But I felt like I was even further away than maybe some other parents who were younger than mine or something. I don't know. Just never could meet. Didn't really dig what he was into, and he certainly didn't like what I was into. But this film came out in 1991, which is the year that I graduated high school, and we kind of bonded over the movie and the soundtrack. And I actually bought him. It came out with 2 soundtracks. So same thing that happened with Dazed and Confused. They put out the first one, it sold really well, and they're like, oh, put out another one with the rest of the songs. And maybe some that weren't even in the movie.
Quick, get it out there. Sell it.
And the movie I'm talking about is The Commitments. Did you ever see The Commitments?
No, I don't think I ever saw that.
Yeah, so it's set in Ireland, in Dublin, and it's about a then current band in the 90s who are a kind of working class Irish soul band. And what they do is they cover 60s soul classics, and some of them are more obscure than just your typical Motown stuff. And what they actually did was they put together this movie with actors that were actual musicians. So you're hearing the musicians, the actors play on the album. And they tried to do as much of it live as they could so it would come across as genuine.
More authentic. Yeah.
And it's really good. It's kind of a grittier take on some of these songs, which is why I liked it, because it's like a little more punk rock. Just because it's about these gritty working class dudes playing this music. And I don't know, it just comes across a little heavier to me. So my dad knew a lot of these songs, and he really enjoyed it, even though didn't really care for the language in the film.
Oh, no.
But
close your ears. Put your fingers in your ears.
But, I was 18 and we were kind of bonding over it. So I wanted to play a song from it. May not be the typical thing that we play here, but again, this is a grittier rock and roll take on a soul song. So I'm going to play from the Commitment soundtrack. This is Mr. Pitiful from 1991.
They call me Mr. Pitiful, baby, that's my name. They call me Mr. Pitiful, that's how I got my fame. But nobody seems to understand now what makes a man feel so blue. Oh, they call me Mr. Pitiful, 'cause I lost someone just like you. They call me Mr. Pitiful, yes, everybody knows now. They call me Mr. Pitiful, most every place I go now. But nobody seems to understand now what makes a man sing such a sad song. Ooh, when you lost everything, when you lost everything, yeah. How can I explain to you somebody acting so very blue? How can I tell you about my thing? Ah, nothing will do, yeah, Mr. Pitiful, baby, that's my name. They call me Mr. Pitiful, that's how I got my fame. But nobody seems to understand now what makes a man feel so blue. They call me Mr. Pitiful, 'cause I lost someone just like you. Now everything is going wrong.
was a peppy little ditty, very Joe Cockerish.
Yeah, those musicians were so good, so tight.
I don't know if you could hear it. It was way down the mix, the really fast guitar. Sort of.
Yeah, I don't know. I just really, for some reason, it resonated with me at the time and still does.
It's timeless. I mean, you can take it from the 60s, you can do the 80s, 90s, all that. It still applies today. A band could take that song today and put a modern twist on it.
In fact, they actually cover one of my most hated songs and pull it off to where I like it.
Oh,
Mustang Sound.
Was it a Neil Young song?
No. See an earlier episode for that.
Yes. Like every wedding, that's up there with Brown Eyed Girl.
Yeah, those two songs I can't stand.
Or Neil Diamond, Caroline. I can't.
Sweet Caroline.
Yeah, Sweet Caroline.
Oh,
I can't listen to
God.
that.
Ugh.
Just fingernails on a chalkboard to me.
Sorry, Brad.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
No, I mean, other Neil Diamond songs are cool. We come into America. As cheesy as that is, I like that song.
Got on your hotline.
Yep. Okay, well, you found two. Okay, other than that. But anyway, yeah, the worst of the worst. And mainly it's just because they're overplayed. It's not that they're bad songs.
Yeah,
I just
maybe.
don't want to hear it anymore.
Well, maybe it's the versions that I've heard by crappy bands. So
Crappy wedding bands.
But they do a killer version on the Commitment soundtrack, and I really, really dig it. So, yeah, it must just be what I've heard. But anybody else plays that song, I'm turning it off or I'm walking away.
It's just the lowest common denominator of a song. Like, anybody can play that. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
Well, maybe it's what it inspires from people that aren't normally into music. When they hear that song, for some reason, they go nuts.
They have to go, woo! Any song that makes them go, woo!
All right, so next, I am going to play a song from someone that we played a few weeks ago. So this is their chance to get a little cred back with us.
Okay.
Because a few weeks ago, we did some really, what were they thinking songs from the 80s.
What the hell?
From major artists. So here's a major artist that everybody knows, and this came out in 1984, and it came from the soundtrack from another amazing punksploitation film called Repo Man. You ever seen Repo Man?
I think I've seen like 10 minutes of
it. Another cult classic, another great weird take on, let's throw some punk rock in it, but it's really a sci-fi flick about Repo Man. Who just happened to find a car that is inhabited by extraterrestrials. So it's an interesting flick. It's got the amazing Harry Dean Stanton in it. I don't know if you know who he is, but if you saw him, you would look him up. You will know exactly who he is. He was in Cool Hand Luke. He was in Godfather 2. And then the punk rock kid in this movie is Emilio Estevez.
So, he got around back then.
Very 80s, man.
Cowboy,
he was
Repo Man.
Yeah, he was in everything. Another cool thing about this flick, depends on who you are, if you think it's cool or not, but the executive producer was Mike Nesmith from The Monkees.
Nice. Little street cred there.
Yeah. Totally successful cult film. It actually got rave reviews. I don't know box office wise what it did, but featured a lot of hardcore punk for the time. So I think 1984. So they, Black Flags on the soundtrack, Circle Jerks, Suicidal Tendencies. A band called The Plugs have several songs on it, which I thought about playing them. But then I thought, you know what? We need to allow this artist a chance to get back a little bit of cred from the drab that we heard a few weeks ago.
Pretty hard on them, yes.
Yes. So check it out. I think you'll know who it is.
sitting on the desert sands, when the desert whispered to me, he said, isn't this a shame? Things will never be the same. This gets me so edgy. Now I'm looking for the joke with a microscope. I was a teenage dinosaur, stoned and obsolete. I didn't get fucked and I didn't get kissed. I got so fucking pissed. Using my head for an ashtray. Now I'll tell you who I am. I'm the Repo Man. And I'm looking for the joke. Yeah, I'm looking for the joke. I'm looking for the joke. Looking for the joke. Looking for the joke. Looking for the joke with a microscope.
Was that Mr. Pop?
That was Mr. Iggy Pop.
Nice. I love that. That was
Creepy cool, man.
creepy cool. Exactly. That was to me. That was right where punk rock crosses into goth territory.
Exactly. That's
And I
why
was
it's
like,
so cool.
That's my favorite god. So right there in the middle. I mean, just it was.
Kind of in Damned territory.
Actually, that's. But before he started singing, I thought, okay, this is the Damned.
Oh, man.
But, yeah, but as soon as you hear his voice, though, you know it.
So that came out in 84. It's Repo Man. It's the title song for the soundtrack and for the album. And then he gives us what we listened to a few weeks ago in 86.
Oh, that came after this, right?
After this.
I keep thinking it was before this.
Yeah, no. Anyway, if you want to hear that awful song, 2 episodes back.
Rewind.
2 episodes back. There you go. So I think he totally made
Yeah.
up for it with this song.
Yeah.
And again, this is probably the
He's
last
still
time
cool.
I'll be able to play Iggy Pop.
No, I'm still optimistic. There's going to be one more thing we pull out of our ass.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. All right. So we're going to move on to another album that's similar to one that we played last time. And I don't know if you remember the last song we played when we did Arcane sounds from the big screen last time. That was part 1. This is part 2, by the way. Part 2. But we played the song that was a rock and hip hop crossover.
Mm-hmm.
So they put rock bands with hip hop bands, and they made the soundtrack for the movie called Judgment Night.
Now, was Run DMC the first one to do that?
Were they the first ones ever?
Rock and hip hop.
Probably. Yeah. Probably. With Walk This Way, with
Yeah.
Aerosmith. Yeah, probably. What we played last time was Living Color in Run DMC. It was the song that we played, and we read off all the other combos that we had, and that was really brilliant. And that came out, I believe, in 93 or 94.
Mm-hmm.
So in 97, there is a movie coming out to support the comic book phase, that everybody was going through at the studios of we got to find a comic book to make a movie. And they decided to do an adaptation of Spawn, which is kind of a horror sci-fi superhero comic that was kind of underground. It was drawn by Todd McFarlane, who had done Spider-Man and kind of brought back Spider-Man in the 90s for Marvel before they started making mega bucks with movies. Anyway, they thought they could make a movie out of Spawn, which it didn't work. John Leguizamo's in it, a bunch of other folks in the cast, that it didn't work. But they thought they would take the Judgment Night theme and apply it to 1997. And so instead of hip-hop, they decided to pair rock bands with what was happening then in 1997. The music du jour was electronica. So think Prodigy, Crystal Method, all that stuff that was kind of crossing over from dance and electronica into the rock world. Because even, I don't know if you remember, but even our X station, 99X, they were playing like Moby, they were playing Crystal Method and all that stuff. At the same time, they were playing STP and Pearl Jam.
Nirvana, yeah.
Yeah, so they thought they'd cash in on it, and it's an interesting interesting mix, and I'll just read you a couple of them. So they did pair Crystal Method with Filter, which Filter was already kind of Nine Inch Nails-ish electronic anyway, but they paired Marilyn Manson with the Sneaker Pimps. Don't know that I remember the Sneaker Pimps, but Orbital with Kirk Hammett, Korn with the Dust Brothers, and let's see if there's any others of note here. You had Butthole Surfers with Moby, Metallica with DJ Spooky, The Prodigy with Tom Morello, which that song's pretty badass, Henry Rollins with Goldie. Now, I almost played that one, but...
We'll save that for another episode.
Save that maybe for another time, because I really want to play this one. I want to play the title song, Spawn. The name of the movie, name of this song, because this was an interesting pairing, and this is a band that I think a lot of people have completely forgotten. Silverchair.
Yeah.
Remember Silverchair?
They had one big,
they had a big
as far
hit.
as I know, one big hit.
They had a big hit. They had several albums, and then they went from being like grunge junior to being an indie rock band by the time they, I think, had their last album. Really great band. I love all their stuff. They definitely changed a lot. They were very young when they got signed.
God, like 15 or 16.
Yeah.
Something crazy.
Yeah,
They're from
great.
down under, aren't they?
Yeah, they're Australian. They had great songs, but they pair Silverchair up with, I think it's Vitro or Vitro, I'm not sure, but I had never heard of this group, but it was a band that had like one album and then they were done, but they were a British industrial band, so they team up the Australians with the British industrial band, and we get this.
as much as I did not like that song just now, I bet it was fun to record because it was definitely outside their wheelhouse. It was something different, very avant-garde. So they probably had a lot of fun with being real creative and different and blending those two themes of bands, two different bands. But like I said, that was...
Never heard Silverchair sound like that.
Definitely would never in a million years guess that was Silverchair. But yeah, that was not for me, but I'm sure...
So late 90s, though.
Very
that was
much.
such
I mean, like the Prodigy.
That was going on, yeah.
They sounded exactly
Chemical
like the Prodigy.
Brothers.
So Chemical Brothers, yeah. And I've forgotten about that era of songs.
Didn't last long.
No, but I liked a lot of this. I liked the Chemical Brothers. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah.
Should be your theme song.
That was pre Firestarter days. If you think about late 90s.
No, that's when
when
Prodigy came out.
No, for me though.
For you.
For me, it was pre Firestarter my fire starting days, because that didn't come around until mid 2000s when I started really playing with pyrotechnics and doing stupid stuff.
It's an interesting experiment.
It was. Like I said, it's probably fun for them to do it.
So of the time. I mean, that's about as late 90s as you can get. Just crossover of everything that was going on. And it came out right before the nu metal really exploded. So if they had put this out a year later, I bet it would have all been nu metal. So you'd have your hip hop again, but for whatever reason, in 97 it was all about the electronica. 98 beyond, it was all nu metal and about hip hop crossover. So
yeah,
and interesting is
I mean, there was a band Electronica, wasn't there, or was it Elastica?
Elastica.
That's what I was thinking of. Elastica. It kept sticking in my head that it was Electronica.
And actually, Incubus is actually on this soundtrack, and they were. In 97, not many people knew who Incubus even were. A couple of years later, they get thrown kind of into that nu metal world. But anyway, interesting soundtrack. Yeah, maybe you didn't like it. Yeah,
it was all right.
Let's talk about a movie franchise that we completely forgot to mention, and no one even brought it up. Huge.
We talked about Star Wars.
Nope. This is a franchise that's had even more movies than Star Wars.
Oh, let's see. Friday the 13th. They had a lot of franchisees.
Bond.
Oh.
James Bond.
Over decades. Generations.
Yes.
Of episodes.
And how important is that song that starts off the movie?
Yes.
The theme song is always played in full in front of your eyes.
And it was so hard to tell my parents I wanted to go see this movie. What movie? Octopus. What was the name of the movie? Octopus. That was the hardest thing for me to have to explain to my parents. Like, what movie? It's a James Bond movie. What's the name of it? Oh, God. Don't make me say it. I'm only 14.
Yeah, man, the Bond films. I mean, think about that. All the bands and some big names from the 60s until this day. Sheena Easton. What was that? For Your Eyes Only?
Yeah. And Duran Duran.
That's the one that I think of the most. View to a Kill. That was huge. And even more current. You had Chris Cornell did one. Jack White and Alicia Keys. I forgot about Chris.
But it wasn't just a soundtrack. It was that opening song. And you knew it was coming, and it was such a big part. And they nailed it most of the time. Those things actually, not every time, but a lot of times those were
there's some clunkers.
Yeah, there's some clunkers, but they became singles. You know, even the older ones in the 70s.
Yeah, I mean, what's the Goldfinger? I mean, I can sing that right now. Goldfinger. Yeah, so huge. I mean, like we mentioned, Aha did one. Jack White and Alicia Keys did one recently.
Wait, which one did Aha do?
One of the more recent ones, I believe.
What, the band Aha?
The band
like
Aha.
Take On Me?
Yeah.
They did a recent one?
Mm-hmm, more recent one, yeah.
Okay, we have to look that up.
It's really cool. Tina Turner did one. Madonna did one. Of course, Paul McCartney.
Oh, yeah. Duh.
Live and Let Die, man. That was huge. And probably the most famous recent one was Adele. She did one.
God, that was another one. Just knocked that out of the park.
And they usually feature the name of the movie in the song. That's usually the chorus.
Hard. You got to write a good song, but somehow you got to work in Octopussy.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Octopussy.
The spy who loved me.
Yeah, man. Huge. And we've only just now mentioned it, but I saw something online that I thought was interesting. And Rolling Stone ranked the worst to first. And what do you think is the worst is there one that you can just, probably one you don't remember?
No,
but,
the worst one would be the one that just completely disappeared. There's been all of the Roger
Moore?
Moore, God.
Yeah. When he took
I
over.
almost said Daltrey. I'm like,
Roger Daltrey.
No, but Sean Connery,
James Bond.
I kind of remember those. Those were all like, show tune type songs.
They were 60s sounding.
60s sounding. And then Roger Moore, I remember a few of those. But then when you get into the newer Bonds after that, after Timothy Dalton,
yeah,
I can't remember any of the Bond themes. I mean, it just, not that they're bad. They're some of the best Bond movies out there. But I guess as I got older, it wasn't as interesting.
It wasn't as big of a thing anymore. But yeah, so the worst one that Rolling Stone ranked was a Roger Moore one, which is sung by Lulu. And Lulu was a Scottish artist that I want to say she had something to do with the Rolling Stones. Maybe I'm getting confused with somebody else.
But anyway, Richards somewhere.
Anyway, she did the theme song to The Man with the Golden Gun. And that was voted the worst of all of them. Now, that was their second selection, the movie studio. That was their second selection for the song for the movie.
And I think that's the movie that Austin Powers based a lot of his stuff on, was the Golden Gun.
It's really bad. It's a really bad Bond film. It's Roger Moore's cheesiest one, and he did some cheese.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He brought the cheese to it, but it was usually really good, and this one was probably the worst. But that one or Moonraker, I never really liked Moonraker, but...
I was just thinking about that the other night, of how absurd it was with the space shuttles, and that was the shark jumping episode. I think to me, that's when it became farcical. Like, I believed everything else before that.
Right.
It was, this is CIA stuff. This is totally possible.
Yeah.
Then
little gadgets. They can do this.
Yeah, little gadgets, a lotus that swims, but
going to the moon base. That was Moonraker.
Moonraker, yeah. But no, it was a orbiting space station.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah,
I thought it was a moon base.
No, that was
Austin
Powers. Austin Powers, I think. But yeah, it was just so far out there that, that was the one where I was like, all right, now let's get back to reality.
So there is actually an artist at the time in 1974 when Man with the Golden Gun came out. There was another artist vying for the theme song who lost out, and instead of just letting the song go, he decided to put it out on his 1974 album, and it's called Man with the Golden Gun. So it came out the same year as the movie, but it didn't wind up on the movie soundtrack or in the movie at all.
They chose something else.
They chose Lulu. So let's play. You're going to know who this is, but wow, if they would have gone with this.
Yeah. So just to be clear, this was before his blackout period?
This was before the blackout period.
I can see why he started drinking after that song.
This was Alice Cooper Band. This was the last Alice Cooper Band release
before he took the name.
Before he decided to go solo.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is on their last album as the band, Muscle of Love.
And I forget that there was an Alice Cooper band. I mean, because I've always
still
known
Alice
him.
Cooper.
Right, but still.
It was a band. It wasn't just him. And this was their last hurrah.
Yeah,
So the studio chose Lulu.
It definitely sounds like a Bond song, but I could see it being a little over the top.
But couldn't you see
the opening sequence?
The dancing girls in the opening sequence with the Alice Cooper makeup on? That would have been badass.
I don't know. That it should have been in the movie somewhere, or like on the soundtrack at least. But
well, if you hear the song they picked, like they should have picked this one. If you don't care for this one, you really wouldn't care for the one they picked. So I don't know why they didn't go with Alice Cooper. Maybe there's just too much drama going on at the time. I don't know, but I just always thought that was so interesting. And I got this.
I'd never heard the story that he almost wrote a James Bond song.
Exactly. I mean, it's.
Well, he did write a James Bond song. It was just not quite in the movie.
It wasn't used.
Or in the soundtrack.
But just incredible. I got this on a tape at Walmart probably when I was 15 years old. Mm-hmm. And all I knew of Alice Cooper was Constrictor at the time, which was like the cheesy 80s, Alice Cooper hair metal, and Trash, which, had the Poison hit on it. Yeah. Bed of Nails and all that stuff. And I got this tape, and it has Muscle of Love on one side, which is this album, and on the other side it had Lace and Whiskey, which is a not great album from the late 70s of his. And it didn't tell me that that's what was on the tape. It was called something else completely, like an Alice Cooper tale or something like that.
And it was just a compilation.
It was just a compilation. They just put these two albums together that didn't sell so well and repackaged them. And I just remember listening to this and just being mesmerized because it was so weird. Like, this didn't sound anything like what I thought Alice Cooper was. I had no connection to any of his 70s stuff. So it was just like, what
this is like show tunes compared to the 80s stuff. This is show tunes.
But I liked it. Even though these are not great albums, there's something just so weird about it that I like it.
Okay, so that's the equivalent of me liking the David Lee Roth show band cover EP. It was EP. It was only 4 songs.
EP, yeah, Crazy from the Heat.
Yeah, Crazy from the Heat. So that was part of that weird thing that you go from David Lee Roth and Van Halen to California Girls, and I was like,
ain't got nobody,
just a gigolo. And I
so him, though.
That was another thing. My playing that, and my mother's listening, going like not horrified, but just like confused. What are you listening to? What happened to my son?
You're in the car driving. What movie are you going to see tonight? What's on the radio right now? I'm just
a working man. Thank you very much.
Well, that's what I have for you, man. Soundtracks that are a little crazy, obscure, and cool.
There's still more to go. We're still going to get nailed with. You still forgot this one, and we'll come up with another episode because that makes or breaks songs for me so many times that I think I said this on the last episode. An example is Sister Christian and Boogie Nights.
In Boogie Nights,
like I always kind of like the song, but that scene is so intense and so edgy. Like there's something about to happen.
The little guy throwing the snappers.
Yeah, the firecrackers. Yeah. Oh, that's the snappers. Yeah, that's what it was. But yeah, that changed that song for me. That when I hear it now, I have a different connection with it. And there's a lot of movies just like that. There'll be that one song that I heard a million times, but all of a sudden it's got that visual or it's just got a moment connected to it that totally transforms it.
I just thought of one we have not mentioned.
Okay.
That somebody's going to yell at us. So Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh my God.
Yeah, classic.
Cheap Trick. Dream Police. Da 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 da.
Da, 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 da. The Dream Police.
So that was
How about some Blue Oyster Cult tickets? That's so great.
Phoebe Cates. Yeah, let's leave it at that.
Okay, well, until next time then.
Later.
He will rock you. The heat will roll you. Baby, don't you know my heat will move your soul. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Love me today. Love me tomorrow. All day, all night, you feel my heat. Feel my heat. Think we should
should repeat that again.
Feel my heat. Feel my heat. Yeah, it's definitely cool. Let's lay it down. Nick?
You wanna lay it down?
We rolling on the rehearsal?
Let me explain to him in simple arithmetic. 1, 2, 3. Cause you don't fucking get it, Bert. You give us the tapes. We get the record contract. We come back and give you your fucking money. Have you heard the tapes? Have you even heard them? We're guaranteed a record deal. Our stuff is that good.
Okay, now
we
I
sculpture.
got it. I got it. Now I understand.
I know you want it to happen. It's not gonna happen because it's a catch-22, and that's it.
What the fuck does that mean? What is a catch-22, Bert?
22, Johnny. Think about it.
You know what I'm thinking about, man? Sir, I'm thinking about kicking some fucking ass.
Sir!
Get here, man.
Scotty, get him out of here. Thanks a lot for backing us up, too. Real good.